Hello, everyone, and welcome to another reading of The Smith and the Knight. Last time, something terrible had happened. Well, I'm not going to tell you what, but it involved a person. And it's unfortunate that this happened. However, the story must go on. Life must go on. So, I will continue on with the rest of the story right now. Sorry again that I seem a little all over the place. I had just woken up and I'm like, you know what? I'm going to record. So that's what I'm going to do. Months had passed. Gellerherter stared at the water in dismay. The pool's reflection only showed a boy with golden hair and dark eyes, his imagination constructing Stolzer near him, whistling a tune. Rena, Anna, and Eisner all talked at length of their experience, but any attempt to reach the young page were met with failure. Apathy had taken the boy, his sadness engulfing him like a lover. His pole had danced and the hook was stripped clean. He seemed to be only met with more failure. In his mind, any failure was blamed on his own incompetence. Stolzer's mission, his state, his loss of bait, everything. He even cursed his body for its inexperience. "Lad, you must listen now," Eisner spoke, his voice finally destroying the barrier. "Our friend is recovering as best he can. We cannot allow our feelings to take us. I have lost many in my lifetime, long as it is." Anna smiled at him sadly. "I too have lost, but I still keep going." "So have I. I've lost my family when I was very young." Rena chimed in and pulled in another fish. But Stolzer is my master." Gellerherter attempted in vain to choke tears from his eyes. "If I were stronger, I would be able to help him. He is all I have." "Ah, but you are hungry." "I know it. I can see it in your face." Eisner laughed heartily, taking the fish and supplies with him. The lake had been engulfed in twilight, the night settling in over the horizon. In the distance, the walls now were illuminated by the ominous red lights which watched over them as they ventured from their destination to Eisner's smithy. The walk was filled with laughter and talk of the future. "You know, I am here to help you, Gellerherter." Rena beamed at him as they passed through the forge. The air of soot and dust tickled his nostrils and he sneezed. He set the basket, the rods, and their bait aside. Renner worked to prepare the fish while Eisner tended to the fire. Anna and Gellerherter were left to aid in whatever way they could. The page and apprentice both took to their respective masters. "How can you help me?" Gellerherter's inquisitive gaze was met with scorn. "I am just as sad as you are, yet you're letting it take you because you are a child." Renna growled. "I want nothing more than to see him walk through that door whole and hale again, but there is naught we can do but hope." She stormed from the kitchen, leaving Gellerherter to stare at the mangled fish. Anna sighed and handed him a knife. "Help me. Follow what I do." The smith's apprentice worked feverishly to clean and gut the fish, placing the organs and other bits into a bowl. He attempted to mimic her. After a spell, Rena opened the door and Ovelia now strode inside. She took one long gaze at the room and rolled up her sleeves. Another girl followed her, her pink hair demanding their attention. "This is Arden. Now stop staring and keep working," the Sandrine overlord growled. "Arden, honey, please sit in your chair and behave." The little girl begged and played with her doll. The little girl giggled and played with her doll. She struggled to maintain the cleanliness of her red silk dress. Everyone in the room labored to fix the meal, and when it was finished, they all prepared plates for one another. "What brings the ruler of all sanctuary to my home this time of night?" Eisner finally asked, his meal devoured. "You must be very busy." "Ah, but I am Stolzer's superior, and I am here on business." Ophelia wiped her mouth with a spare cloth, and then proceeded to wipe Arden's with another rag. "Stolzer is awake. He seems more compelled to speak, but wanted to wait until morning." Excitement took hold of everyone, but before anyone could place inquiries, she raised a hand. "He is still struggling with a sense of self. For some time there will be therapy, but he will recover in time. It is still too early to tell you anything else." "But he will be well." Gellerherter was the first to speak. "He'll be able to fight, won't he?" "It is still too early to tell," Ophelia repeated and pointed to his plate. "Eat your food, or you won't grow as strong as your master." "I don't want to be strong if he can't be strong." "You will do as commanded, page!" "I am your sanguine overlord, and I will have your respect." The intense glare returned to silence him, and he ate. More progress from your persuasion." The master smith placed his plate in front of his apprentice and wiped his beard clean. "I'll go now to add some finishing touches. Have a good evening, madam." "You as well." Stolzer found himself locked in a perpetual battle of wits, his body seeming to be lost to him. Any attempt of moving his hands was met with failure. Another figure stood across the empty chasm. Stolzer and the man, though familiar, appeared to be just another figment of his imagination. He was shackled to the ground and stood now on a gigantic block of steel which had been fastened to walls nearby with massive links. The machine whirred to life. Millions of trails etched into the metal like anthills were filled with his blood again and again and again. Stolzer attempted many times to free the man, though he could never reach him. His body was heavy and he was unable to walk. In vain he tried crawling, though it was no use. Whether it was from fatigue or lack of strength, the more he struggled to reach the man, the greater the challenge. Finally, Stolzer's eyes shot open, and instinctively he reached for his sword. The blade failed him as it had been placed out of his reach. Rena was sleeping nearby, her head resting on the desk. Gellerherter had fallen asleep in a similar fashion at the foot of his bed. Light from the nearby torch sconces gave some refuge from the evening. He nearly leaped from his skin as the door to his right opened, his Sandrian overlord striding over to him. Her usual authoritative air was replaced with the gait of someone beaten and worn, the blonde hair released from his bun. She took a stool on her way and sat near his bedside, her gaze fixating onto his. "Are you well enough to talk? I had tried to reach you earlier, but you were still asleep." She opened a tome in her hands as she addressed him. The Grand Library's crest, the rising sun among a field of sunflowers, had been sewn into the leather-bound book. I wasn't expecting company at this time of night," Stolzer shrugged. "What brings you here? Tell me your dream again." I was standing near an abyss. Everything was black. There was a man on the other side. He seemed to be trying to tell me something, but I couldn't hear what it was." He crossed his arms and fell silent for an instant. "He was standing on a machine of some sort. I can't remember what it looked like." "The same dream every night, but you seem to remember more each time," Ophelia observed, keenly taking mental notes. I am. You ask me the same question each night. What if you experience something? I'm trying to find records of it in the Grand Library. Anything that is written down is stored there, no matter what place in the universe it is documented." She grunted as she opened the ancient book. The pages were worn and otherwise barely legible. I'm trying to cross-reference your dream with something similar. I feel as though I am close. Close enough to... Yes, close enough to taste it. Tell me more about this dream if you can remember anything else. I think this machine had been carved somehow. Almost like an anthill. It was chained to each wall, though it was heavy enough to be never moved by anyone. What troubles me is... Who is that man? Stolzer lowered his head and scowled. And Renna, my squire. I feel as though she does not belong to me. I feel as though she belongs to the man in the dream. She was your first student, Ophelia reminded him, but he shook his head in reply. No, Gellerherter, my page, was my first student. He always has been. I know I've trained him in my own way. Renna feels different. I can't explain it. Stolzer sighed and he sat upright in his bed. I understand if you're unable to continue. The data you're giving me is greatly appreciated, though I wonder why you went into that place alone. I gave you orders to wait for reinforcements. I didn't enter the place alone. I told you this. I went there with a partner, the man of my dream. You gave us orders to apprehend the ritual, whatever the ritual was. He felt rage bubbling deep within his gut, his knuckles flashing white. Here, I have the copy I sent you. She retrieved the letter from her pocket and handed it over to him. He opened the letter and his eyes widened. The unfamiliar orders were there, detailing his need for discretion. There is a ritual happening sometime tonight. We intercepted a letter detailing this, and we are sending reinforcements ahead of this letter. Wait for them at the usual place. Do not allow yourself to be seen. Your squire and page are to evacuate. Ophelia Mortem. God. He crushed the letter in agony, a mixture of emotion taking him. I understand this is all difficult to take in. His dark eyes met hers. A rush of memories erupted from deep within his psyche. The man in the dream took hold of him, the only remnants of his existence pouring from Stolzer's lips. You are Avelia's Anastasia Mortem. You were married to a man named Alphonse Mortem, who bested you in combat and earned his place at your side. You know who he is. He shared his life with you for many years, advocating for you to adopt since you cannot have children of your own. He aided you in many mundane tasks, and it kept you in line when you stepped too far. Ophelia, you know who this is. She stared at him in disbelief. I have never loved a man no one has ever dared to. Alphonse, you know Alphonse. He was there with me. He fell into the trap and was sacrificed in the ritual. Stolzer threw the sheets from his body as he shouted at her, waking both Gellerherter and Renna with a jolt. His hands reached for Avelia's shoulders, but he was knocked tackled to the bed by his page. He felt the rage subside, and he continued to catch his breath. You know him. You know Alphonse. Do not approach me that way again, Stolzer. Like or not, I am your Sandrian overlord. I am conducting this investigation in the stead of my Justicar, who are in the field trying to fulfill the mission you failed. She growled, slamming the book shut. You are not fit for duty. Until you are well, you will receive more appropriate therapy. I don't care if it takes the rest of your life. Ophelia spun on her heels to leave. She had arrived alone, unarmed. To the Justicar, she seemed helpless. But in the memories of the man in his dream, Alphonse, she needed no weapon. She was a weapon. Years passed them by. Anna watched the young page grow into a squire. The man before her was no longer helpless. He had defeated many in duels and other competitions of knighthood. She fashioned his weapons and cared for his gear, as Eisner did for Stolzer. She worked feverishly in the forge alongside her master. Though she was far younger than him, she absorbed his techniques like a sponge. Anna, do not forget the rivets in your breastplate. It is due in a few hours. Eisner called from his area. His body was failing him, but he kept his spirits high. Yes, Papa. The bell, which she crafted and fashioned to the door, told to alert them of their customer. Another knight, who heard of her craftsmanship, had ordered the breastplate some time ago. His aura was that of a noble born. Is it ready yet? I expect results. He tapped his foot impatiently. The bell rang behind him. Gallagher and Rena entering in unison. Anna, do you need help? Anna attempted to shout over the ringing of the hammer and the roaring flames of the forge, but it was instead met with silence. The soot in the air tickled her nostrils and she sneezed, knocking her head into the night. Foolish girl, watch yourself! If you cause trouble, I will use your order for other work. You're not here to bother anyone. Stand over there. Anna barked. You can't tell me. You will do what she says! Eisner stood upright, using a massive hammer as his cane, and motioned for him to stand away from the door. Without another word, he took his place. The mastersmith smiled and returned to his seat. In 20 minutes, the noble left with his intricate breastplate. What brings you here? Anna addressed him after a spell, washing the soot from her face. She discarded the cloth into the usual pile. We were in the area, so we thought we would pay a visit. Rena nudged Gallagher, who busied himself with details of a sword. Aye, we were in the area. Care for some coffee, Papa? Anna took now to Eisner, who had been sitting in his rocking chair. His place was near the forge, though the workshop was busy during the daylight. The old smith appeared to mull over her question, but she allowed no time for a response. She exited the workshop and returned with 3 mugs of hot coffee, handing one to Rena, Gallagher, and Eisner. Oh, you don't have to. You will accept the coffee. You are our guests. Eisner chuckled. You have been our guests for some time, and you do not ever seem to remember our rules. Aye, it seems to be our worst trait. Rena shrugged and sipped at her beverage. Anna turned over a couple of barrels with ease for them to sit on. How is Stolzer? Anna asked. He's doing better. Nothing out of the ordinary? The mastersmith stroked his beard and merely set his coffee in his lap. Either Arvilio or another Justicar interviews him, but they're all the same. I feel as though it is a wasted effort. Gallagher sighed. Behind them, the bell chimed, and Anna immediately shooed them out. She turned over the sign outside the door. I believe even our great overlord does not know what it is she is looking for. Eisner motioned for his pipe, and Anna prepared it for him. He puffed on it for a few moments, exhaling rings into the air. What about you, Eisner? What are you... I haven't been the same. I am old. All that is left for me is to die. He replied coldly and shrugged. I have lived through several wars. That is long enough. Silence prevailed on for a time. Gallagher, help me with the cleanup. Her emerald gaze fixed onto him as the order was given. He nodded nervously. I hear you are fitting into his old role quite well. Eisner nodded, rocking himself in his chair. Yes, I am. Stolzer would be proud. He still acts strangely towards me, but I feel like he is proud of me. Acts strangely how? He seems to struggle with his memory of me. I ask him simple things about my past that include him, and he remembers, but he doesn't believe he should know it. Rena stared into the mug of coffee and drained it shortly after. The ruckus of the cleaning and Anna's orders interrupted her train of thought. If it were possible, I would like to see my old friend, Perhaps another meeting with me would jog his memory. Eisner set his mug near the forge and struggled to stand upright. Sir, you shouldn't. Don't tell an old man to not do what he can do, he barked. She shook her head in dismay. Papa, the shop is clean for now. Are we going to see Stolzer? Anna peeked from the door leading to the kitchen, seeming hopeful. Aye, get your things, clean yourself. You look like you rolled out from behind the forge. Yes, Papa. The door shut behind her. Rena and Gallagher exchanged glances. They attempted to take the hammer from Eisner, but the man refused countless times. His right arm seemed to protest when he moved the tool, but he managed to leave the forge unaided. And that is where we will leave off for right now. Thank you, everyone, for listening, taking the time out of your day to enjoy this. If you like this video, be sure to leave a comment. Let me know what you think. Give it a like. Even do that crazy thing and just subscribe. But that is all the time I have today. I will bid you all adieu. Take care now. It's a dangerous world out there. Thank you for listening.